We now know what caused the death of NASCAR legend Kyle Busch. Today, his race car, rebranded to the number 33, took to the track at the Charlotte Motor Speedway with a teammate behind the wheel.
Kyle Busch's death on May 21st, 2026, sent shockwaves through the NASCAR world, marking the end of one of the sport's most decorated champions. But before the tributes had even settled, a new controversy began spreading online, one that quickly overshadowed the grief itself. Claims emerged suggesting his family was left financially exposed due to a lack of adequate life insurance, forcing confusion, speculation, and urgent attention from those closest to him. As the narrative spread across social media, it triggered an official response that changed the direction of the story entirely. But what is actually true, and what was never real in the first place? Join us as we uncover what's really happening behind the headlines. The life insurance rumor that forced his lawyer to go public. 2 days after Kyle Busch died, while his wife was still absorbing what had happened, and his 11-year-old son and 4-year-old daughter were being told their father was not coming back, a story was circulating online that made an already devastating situation considerably worse. The claim was specific. Kyle Busch had allowed his life insurance coverage to lapse, or had otherwise left his family without the financial protection that a man in his position with dependents should have had in place. The implication was that Samantha, Braxton, and Lennox were facing a future with the emotional devastation of losing their father and husband, compounded by genuine financial uncertainty. 2 days after the NASCAR driver's sudden death, attorney Robert Rickard addressed what he called a false narrative that Kyle died without proper life insurance coverage. He wrote on LinkedIn, "It needs to be stopped, and those publishing false statements are on notice to correct them." He then provided the specific details that made the rumor inaccurate. Robert explained that the two policies had no value prior to litigation and were terminated. The remaining policies were handled responsibly. He confirmed that the Busch family had retained an independent insurance specialist who evaluated the entire portfolio and recommended a structured transition to replacement coverage that provides a substantial lifetime death benefit. Robert was emphatic. The Busch family did not walk away from their coverage. The statement was necessary, and the speed with which it was issued suggests something about how fast the rumor was spreading and how much potential damage it carried. In the immediate days after a famous person dies, the internet tends to fill informational gaps with the most dramatic available narrative. The idea that a NASCAR champion who earned $16 million in a single year had somehow left his family without life insurance protection is dramatic enough to travel quickly. And it did. The lawyer's statement stopped the worst of it. But it also confirmed something uncomfortable. In the fog of grief that follows a sudden and unexpected death, the family of a public figure has to fight misinformation while simultaneously trying to process the loss itself. Samantha Busch was doing both at once. And the insurance story was only one layer of what the family now has to navigate. Because managing a $100 million estate, a foundation, multiple business investments, and 2 young children's futures simultaneously is not something that grief makes easier. So what exactly does the landscape look like for the family Kyle Busch left behind? The estate Samantha now manages alone. Kyle Busch's estimated net worth at the time of his death was between $100 million and $115 million. That number reflects 21 years of being one of the highest-paid drivers in American motorsport, a commercial portfolio that included major endorsement deals across multiple industries, automotive dealership investments, and the successful foundation and eventual sale of Kyle Busch Motorsports. His attorney Robert Rickard confirmed the family has been receiving guidance from a professional and emphasized that structured transition to replacement coverage had already been put in place before the rumors started. The existence of that structure suggests the estate was not entirely unprepared for the possibility of an early death, which is something that drivers whose careers involve significant physical risk tend to plan for more carefully than people in other professions. But the sheer scale of what Samantha now administers is genuinely staggering. There is the Lake Norman property in North Carolina, purchased for $7.5 million in 2012 with its private beach and pool. There is the 35-acre estate in Cleveland, North Carolina, listed at $4.5 million in 2025, featuring a custom 15,000-square-foot barn dominium and personal off-road tracks. There are the Chevrolet dealership investments made in partnership with the Boyd Automotive Group in North Carolina and Hawthorne Chevrolet in New Jersey. There are the endorsement relationships with Cheddar's Scratch Kitchen, Rebel Bourbon, Lucas Oil, Bank OZK, Zone Premium, Nicotine Pouches, Chevrolet, Morgan, and Bet MGM that were active at the time of his death, and that will need to be carefully wound down or transitioned. Samantha Busch had been managing Kyle Busch Motorsports and the Kyle Busch Foundation alongside her husband, while also running her own YouTube channel and clothing boutique, Her Collection. She came into the marriage with her own professional skills and her own business capacity. She is not someone who is encountering management responsibilities for the first time. But managing those responsibilities while raising an 11-year-old and a 4-year-old through the grief of losing their father at ages when the impact of that loss will manifest differently and unpredictably across many years ahead is something different from what she was doing before May 21, 2026. The financial complexity alone requires sustained professional management. The legal complexity of a $100 million estate that includes real property, business investments, intellectual property attached to the Kyle Busch name and brand, active sponsorship contracts, and the ongoing Bundle of Joy Fund Foundation requires an estate attorney, a financial manager, a tax professional, and probably several more specialists working simultaneously. All of that has to be coordinated while the family is still in the acute phase of grief, still responding to public tributes, and still making the day-to-day decisions of raising 2 young children. And then there is the specific and deeply personal question of what happens to the number 8, to Brexton, and to the racing legacy that Kyle Busch built and clearly intended to pass to his son. What happens to Brexton and the number 8? NASCAR temporarily retired Kyle Busch's number 8 until Brexton Busch is old enough to potentially follow in his father's footsteps on the track. That decision was made immediately after Kyle's death, and it was widely understood as both a tribute and a deliberate reservation of something that belongs to the family rather than to the sport at large. The number is waiting. What happens to it depends almost entirely on what Brexton decides to do with his life over the next decade. Brexton Busch, who recently turned 11 years old, had already begun following in his father's footsteps on the racetrack. Racing has long been part of the Busch family legacy, dating back to Kyle's father, Tom Busch, who found success racing late models in Nevada before passing that passion to sons Kurt and Kyle. 3 generations of Busch men racing is a family tradition rather than a coincidence, and Brexton was being actively developed as the 4th before his father died. He had already won races. He had competed in multiple junior racing categories. His father had built off-road tracks on the family's 35-acre property, specifically to give him somewhere to develop. Kyle described Brexton's racing ability in direct terms, calling it family business and saying it was in the blood. The last time Kyle raced a truck competitively, in February 2026 at Echo Park Speedway, Brexton was in victory lane with him afterward. Those photographs exist now as the last documented moments of a father and son celebrating together at the place they both loved most. The problem that Brexton now faces is not whether he has the talent. The early evidence suggests he does. The problem is that he is 11 years old, his father just died, and the path from grieving child to Cup Series driver runs through a decade of development, competition, and personal growth that will now happen without the most important mentor he ever had. The coaches he will work with, the people his mother will trust to guide his development, the decisions about which series to run, and when, and for how long, all of those choices that Kyle would have made or directly shaped now fall entirely to Samantha and to the extended family and professional network around them. His uncle Kurt Busch was present at the Charlotte Motor Speedway tribute alongside the family. Kurt's own Cup Series career was ended by a concussion sustained in a 2022 crash, which means he carries detailed knowledge of what the sport demands and what it costs. And he is now positioned as one of the most important people in Brexton's development. Whether he takes an active role in guiding his nephew toward the career that both of his father's sons had is a question that has not yet been answered publicly. And Lennox, who is 4 years old and was wearing checkered bows at Charlotte Motor Speedway 3 days after her father died, is young enough that the memory of him will be largely constructed from what her mother tells her and from the footage and the photographs that document who Kyle Busch was before she was old enough to understand what she was watching. That is not a small challenge. That is one of the most profound parenting responsibilities that Samantha now carries alone. But there are other aspects too. The foundation she has to keep running without him. The Samantha and Kyle Busch Bundle of Joy Fund was founded in 2015, inspired by the couple's own infertility journey. The initiative raises awareness about infertility and supports couples facing similar struggles by providing financial grants to help offset the cost of fertility treatments. Samantha authored a book called Fighting Infertility.
It's something they've experienced firsthand, and now Samantha has written a book about their journey called Fighting Infertility.
Finding my inner warrior through trying to conceive, IVF and miscarriage. The foundation was the public expression of a private struggle, and it was built on the specific credibility that comes from two people who went through something painful and chose to use that pain to help others. Their fertility journey included an unsuccessful embryo transfer and a miscarriage. Samantha opened up about the toll the miscarriage took on the marriage, saying, "We had a lot of marital struggles because we had never dealt with something so heavy, and we didn't understand how each other were grieving." She said they went to marriage counseling and worked really hard at getting through it together. Kyle's response in that period was characteristically forward-looking. Nothing can be done to change the outcome, he had told her, and they needed to keep moving forward. She wanted him still in grief with her. He was already planning the next step. The gap between those two responses was something they worked through, and the marriage and the foundation that came out the other side were both stronger for it. The foundation now has to carry forward without the co-founder whose name is in its title. Samantha's connection to the work is genuine and personal, and she has been its primary public face for years. But the Kyle Busch name was part of its identity and its fundraising reach, and managing the transition from a joint enterprise to a solo one, while also managing every other dimension of her new life, is a significant ongoing challenge. The organizations that operate in the infertility advocacy space will continue to need the resources the foundation provides. The families who have already received grants from it, the couples who are in the middle of treatments made possible by its financial support, are real people whose situations do not pause because the foundation's co-founder has died. Samantha has every reason to keep the foundation running and has already demonstrated the commitment and the capability to do it. But it is one more item on a list of responsibilities that has grown enormously in a very short period of time. How is she truly faring with everything that's going on around her? The public grief and the online cruelty. The misinformation about life insurance was only the most professionally addressed example of the specific problem that being a public figure's family creates in the modern internet environment. Samantha Busch has been a public figure in her own right for years, with her own social media following, her own brand, and her own relationship with the portion of NASCAR's audience that followed her journey rather than just her husband's. Kyle Busch's widow Samantha broke down in sobs while hugging their son Brexton at the NASCAR tribute at Charlotte Motor Speedway on May 24th, with the entire ceremony streamed to audiences across multiple platforms. The moment of a mother holding her two children in the immediate aftermath of losing her husband was broadcast to millions of people, and the responses to that broadcast ran the full spectrum of human reaction. Most of it was compassionate, some of it was not. The specific cruelty that the internet reserves for grieving women who are visible and public is a real and documented phenomenon, and Samantha has already encountered versions of it in a career that has included managing her public profile through miscarriages, infertility treatments, and the specific pressures of being married to one of the most polarizing figures in NASCAR's history. The audience that loved Kyle Busch loved him completely. The audience that disliked him was equally committed to that feeling. Samantha has been navigating both of those audiences' responses to her own presence for years. Now she has to navigate them while being the widow of someone those audiences are processing their own grief about, and while keeping two children away from the worst of what that looks like online, which is itself a full-time job. NASCAR CEO Steve O'Donnell spoke directly to the family at Charlotte, saying, "Samantha, I want you to know that this sport stands with you. You and your children are NASCAR family forever. Brexton and Lennox, your dad loved you with all of his heart. That institutional support is real, and it matters. But it does not answer every message that lands in Samantha's inbox, and it does not determine what her children will read when they are old enough to go looking for information about their father. Brexton Busch is 11 years old. He already has his own social media presence connected to his junior racing career. He is old enough to read what people say about him and about his family. The management of what that exposure looks like and how it is shaped to protect him rather than damage him is something that falls to Samantha at a time when she has the least available emotional and practical capacity for it. Now, how would the Busch family navigate life in the face of this profound loss? What the family has that matters most? Against all of the challenges, and they are real and serious, the Busch family has resources and support that most families in similarly sudden and devastating circumstances never have access to. Kyle and Samantha built the Bundle of Joy Fund together, which means the professional and philanthropic infrastructure around them is populated by people who understand what they value and what they are trying to accomplish. The NASCAR community's response to Kyle's death has been immediate, organized, and sustained, with NASCAR CEO O'Donnell specifically committing the sport's support to the family's long-term well-being. The legal team that stepped forward immediately to address the insurance misinformation is clearly already in place and already functioning as an effective shield against the information problems that tend to compound the practical ones. The insurance specialist retained by the family had already completed a portfolio evaluation and structured a transition before the lawyer needed to go public. That level of preparation reflects planning that Kyle and Samantha had done before his death, which means the estate is not starting from scratch. Samantha's own professional background, her decade managing Kyle Busch Motorsports, and the foundation alongside her own brand means she walks into this with genuine operational capability. She has been running complex multi-entity organizations for years. She knows how to manage a budget, a team, and a public profile. She is not a person who needs to be taught how these things work. She is a person who needs the people around her to give her the space and the support to keep doing what she already knows how to do, under circumstances that are immeasurably harder than anything she has had to do before. Brexton has the number 8 waiting for him if he wants it. He has an uncle who drove at the highest level of the sport and who is now in a position to be a consistent presence in his nephew's development. He has the off-road tracks his father built for him. He has a mother who was in victory lane with him every time it mattered and who is not going to step away from that role. And Lennox has photographs of her father holding her at racetracks across the country, in pit lanes and victory lanes and paddocks, in the places where he was most himself, in the world he built for 21 years, and then gave to a family that will carry it forward in the only way that families carry things forward: imperfectly, painfully, and with enormous love. Which challenge do you think will be the hardest for Samantha to manage in the years ahead? And when the day comes that Brexton Busch is old enough to decide what to do with his father's number 8, do you believe racing is the right path for him? Or should Samantha protect him from the pressure of that legacy? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.